Boy. This Friday, PFL 10 2022 championships going down at the Hulu Theater in New York City, New York, USA. And this will be the final of the finale of the playoffs for all divisions, with the winners of each weight division getting $1 million prize. Also of note, this will be PFL's first ever pay-per-view event, being available on ESPN Plus for the grand sum of, what was it, Omar?
$49.99 plus sales tax.
Ooh. Okay, let's make our way up this card. Magomedkerimov versus Gleison Tibau going down. What's so funny? In the welterweight division. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. Welcome back. What do you have to say about this welterweight matchup?
We were just laughing because we respect your dedication to the craft of pronouncing Brazilian names.
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say Tibau.
I'm pretty sure that's how he says it.
I like it. I'll go with it. I'm all right with it.
Should I say that Tibau is the man who beat Habib, just to really get the people who think we hate Habib going?
Oh my god.
All right.
Yes.
So, pretty deep PFL card. This is like the 10th fight down, and it's got Magomedians in it, and he's a stud. So he's a big favorite here. He is minus 475. Gleison Tibau is the dog at plus 325. I'm sure the PFL is looking at this one, hoping it's a rehyper for their guy Magomedkerimov coming into next season, where I'm sure he'll be back in the mix. The only reason he wasn't in the mix this year, didn't end up in this year's playoffs, is because he had a fight fall off. So he didn't end up earning enough points because of it, which is kind of the way it shakes out sometimes in PFL. He didn't even lose. He won his one fight that he had, but didn't have enough points to make it into the playoffs. So unfortunately, he was outside looking in. But he's going to have a huge size advantage here. He is 5 inches taller than Gleison. He has a 5-inch reach on Gleison. He's the bigger man. Tibau was a lightweight for much of his career. Magomed's a pretty big welterweight. I think he takes it to Tibau. I will say UD just because I do respect Gleison's skill level, but I think this one is all Magomedkerimov.
Omar, any thoughts?
I also believe in the Magomed of the Magomedovs here, Magomedkerimovs. Gleison Tibau been around for a minute, man. And his credit, the mileage that boy has, doesn't really show all the time when he's in there. His performances a lot of the time are pretty solid. And the fact that he's still winning at his age with the miles that he has is pretty impressive. So credit to him for that. I just don't think he's going to be able to get around Magomedkerimov. I think his skill is just way too much. I think he's just a little bit too consistent of a winner. And I do think Gleison Tibau is a tough out, but I do think Magomedkerimov finishes him, so I will go TKO round 3.
Let's go. Okay. In the... which division here? In the lightweight division.
Lightweight.
Yes. How do you say this guy's name? Natan Schulte?
Schulte.
Schulte.
Or Schulte. I forget if you say the E.
Taking on Jeremy Lil Heathen Stevens. Omar, why don't you take this one first?
Jeremy Stevens. How can you not love Jeremy Stevens? This is his third fight in PFL. His first two did not go, or his first one did not go his way. The second one kind of did, but it's not really a Jeremy Stevens fight if he hasn't knocked somebody out. So I don't think he's really been satisfied with this little PFL run that he's had so far. The gentleman that he is fighting here, Natan Schulte, has only been knocked out once, so there is an opportunity to get knocked out again. He hasn't been as consistent, at least in recent, so I like Jeremy Stevens. I never really thought Jeremy Stevens necessarily fell off. I know he's had a lot of losses as of late, but I always thought he looked good up until he got his ass handed to him, so I'm going to go with Jeremy Stevens here. I'm going to go with him by knockout first round.
Let's go. Mark, your thoughts?
So Stevens is a big dog. I do think he's live. He's plus 310. Natan Schulte is minus 410. which is pretty wide. It hasn't gone great for Stevens in the PFL thus far. As Omar said, he's 1-1, 2 decisions. The win was a split. He hasn't been terribly impressive. I think the main reason that these odds are so wide is because Schulte is kind of known for his chin, and he's a wrestler. So you combine those two things, and it's sort of like, how will Jeremy Stevens pull it off then? I do think he can crack anybody's chin, but I'm going to say that Schulte can or Schulte. I don't know why I can never remember how to say his name, even though I've watched him fight about a dozen times in my life. But I'm going to say he can take what's coming at him, and that the wrestling ends up being the factor here, and that he can just drown Stevens to a decision.
Okay. Moving on into the featherweight division, it is Moraes on Moraes violence. We have Marlon Moraes taking on Sheyman Moraes. Mark, sticking with you, what are your thoughts on this fight?
So this is a very tight one. They're both minus money. Sheyman is minus 115. Marlon is minus 105. So practically a pick'em fight. I am glad we got this fight instead of the Shane Burgos matchup that Marlon Moraes was supposed to have, which just felt like an unfair size advantage mauling waiting to happen. So I'm glad we have this one. Sheyman is still bigger. It's a factor. He's 2 inches taller. He's a 5-inch reach advantage, which is pretty significant. Add in the fact that Marlon may be washed. I mean, the dude was just planning to be retired before deciding to hop back into the PFL. It has not gone well for him lately. But he has still looked good in a lot of moments. Like, even in the loss to Merab, he was putting it on Merab in round 1. And Merab is one of the best bantamweights in the world. So the skills are in there. And on top of that, Marlon has always been better than Sheyman Moraes. Like, he just has been. These two even already fought in the past, and Marlon won. So it is possible he's just one of these guys who has hit the wall and it's over, and I think that's why the odds are even though Marlon's track record is so much better than Sheyman's. I'm going to say Marlon can find the chin. I think if he's still even remotely close to himself, he is the faster, more dynamic striker by a good stretch, and I think he can put Sheyman down. I will say round 1, knockout.
Omar, your thoughts?
Marlon has had a tough run, to say the least. I personally don't think he won against Jose Aldo, and so if you take that into consideration, the man hasn't won since early 2019. He's lost, what would that be? I mean, technically like 5, I say 6 in a row. I know he got a lot of shit for that Jose Aldo fight, so I don't know how much he takes away from it, but regardless, he's had a really, really rough run as of late. With all that being said, just like Mark said, he's got skills. They're in there. They haven't gone away. But the man is like he's almost like somebody who runs, tries to sprint to the finish, and literally trips over his foot right at the very end. Perfect performance, and then fucks up. And that just feels like that's what it's been with him for quite some time now. I want to say that from his mouth, it sounds like him not having to cut weight as much anymore is going to make a significant difference. It sounds like it gives him more energy. It'll make him stronger. He says he feels better. He doesn't feel like he's killing himself to make weight anymore. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take that into consideration. I will stay on the Marlon Moraes train for right now, but I fully reserve the right to Mission Impossible my ass out of this train. So I will go by Marlon Moraes, unanimous decision.
All right, moving up to the main card, the light heavyweight division. Now, I believe this is a light heavyweight title fight for $1 million between Omari Akhmedov versus Rob Wilkinson. Omar, your thoughts?
I can't get over this guy's fucking mustache. Shit is so jarring. All right, Omari Akhmedov is definitely one of those guys I used to watch in the UFC. I'm surprised why did he leave the UFC?
I don't remember if they let him walk or if he chose to go.
I say this is a solid fucking resume here, to be quite honest with you.
Oh yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
He was always.
I remember him being good. Yeah. Anyway, I've always been pretty high on Akhmedov. I always thought his skills were pretty well rounded. His ground game was definitely legit. I think he definitely has what it takes to continue winning in the PFL. He's only lost one, his first fight in the PFL, and he's won ever since. Rob Wilkinson has not lost in the PFL yet, but I think this will be his first. I will go with Akhmedov by decision.
Mark?
All right, so the UFC vet, or actually they're both UFC vets, so I shouldn't say that. Wilkinson had his little run. He was actually Izzy's first fight back in Izzy's debut.
And that was his last.
But the more so veteran, I don't know why my brain is breaking, in Omari, is the underdog here. He's plus 170. Rob Wilkinson is minus 210. I'm not surprised Wilkinson has been marching through this season of the PFL. He has been walking through dudes, knockouts left and right. At the same time, he hasn't necessarily beat anyone who's too credible, and Omari Akhmedov is that, and Omari Akhmedov has beat some dudes, and even drew with Marvin Vettori back in 2017, which is kind of an odd claim to fame, but it's a credible result to show you his skill level. They both can wrestle, so even if Akhmedov tries to go that route, Wilkinson may be able to deter that. And if he does, Omari can be very willing to get into bangs and see who falls first. And I think that if we see that, I think that plays into Wilkinson's hands with the way he's fighting right now. He just seems so friggin' crisp on the feet and so successful at finding the big shot in the middle of an exchange. Not to mention he has a 7-inch reach advantage in this fight. The man
I was just going to ask you that.
He has an 80-inch reach, which is a wild reach. And he's 3 inches taller as well, so he is the bigger dude for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he can stuff enough takedowns, make it a scrap, and do it again. I will say Rob Wilkinson, round 2, knockout.
Nice. Okay, moving on up. In the welterweight division, Sadibou C taking on Dilano Taylor for the PFL welterweight championship and $1 million. Mark, sticking with you this time, give us your thoughts.
All right, fairly tight odds here. Sadibou C is minus 175. Dilano Taylor is plus 140. This is a tricky one. Dilano Taylor has kind of come out of nowhere getting himself into this fight. He stepped in as a replacement for Magomedkerimov in the semifinals against Rory, and he took Rory out. So it's like that's a pretty impressive result. Granted, Rory has been kind of on his own slide lately pre-retirement. But as good as that result is, it's just a little hard to pick him over Sadibou C for me, who has kind of earned his way here. He's put together 3 straight veteran impressive performances. He kind of feels like a guy who's truly figured out the most successful way to implement his game. Taylor does have power. He's a threat there if he catches C, but it's usually wrestlers who give Sadibou C trouble. So I think on the feet he will be able to stay safe. I think he can kind of work behind his length and just win rounds as he's been doing in this tournament, really. I think he can kind of fight this fight with a similar style that he has without even having to worry about the takedowns that he's had to think about in other fights. So I'm going to go Sadibou C with a kind of workman-like UD.
Omar, your thoughts?
I expected, or probably somewhere hope, that Taylor actually will be able to find his chin. I think Taylor's aggression, his ability to come forward and ability to close distance might make things a little bit more difficult for C. Is it C?
C, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It'll make it more difficult for C to capitalize on a lot more opportunities than one would think. I think it's going to be a tough ask for Taylor, but I think then again, so is Rory. Even on the worst days, Rory is still Rory McDonald. So I definitely think it means something, that win that he took away. So I'm going to go with Taylor by TKO round 2.
Like it.
All right, man, it's getting crispy here. For the lightweight championship, Stevie Ray taking on Olivier Aubin-Mercier, OAM. Omar, sticking with you, give us your thoughts on this matchup. Who do you think is going to take home the gold and the green?
This man has has whooped Pettis' ass twice at this point, and I still am not ready to pick him to win a fight. I don't know why. Maybe I'm an asshole. I'm not really sure. What I can tell you is I am not prepared to pick against Olivier Aubin-Mercier. I think his wrestling is fantastic. I think he's actually gotten just a little bit crisper, having gone over to the PFL. And I think he knows how to win. I think he knows how to take 3 rounds away from somebody. I think he knows how to outwork people. And I think he's able to take this one home. I'm going to go with OAM by unanimous decision.
OAM, the 5-fight win streak to Stevie Ray's 2-fight win streak, both over my boss, Anthony Showtime Pettis. Mark, what are your thoughts?
I feel very similarly. If Stevie Ray wins this tournament, it's just going to be on the back of me not believing in him the entire way through, and same for Omar. So I will be impressed if he pulls it off. Not like he's a bad fighter. I haven't felt like these were the right matchups for him. And I feel like it even more so in this fight than I did against Pettis. And the odds makers seem to agree. OAM is minus 375. Stevie Ray is plus 285, which is pretty wide for a fight where guys have somewhat similar resumes as these two do. Of course, I'm impressed seeing Stevie Ray beat Pettis twice. I just can't pick him here. First off, I thought OAM would win this tournament since the day he signed with the PFL. And secondly, I just think it's a really hard style matchup. I'm not sure what Ray can do to win it. I don't see him being able to out-wrestle OAM. OAM is such a good scrambler. He's so strong. His wrestling is high level. I don't see him being able to outstrike OAM. OAM's so good at keeping the distance. I think he's quicker. He's longer. I actually think they're similarly long on paper, but I mean the way he's able to fight longer than Ray is. Ray needs to be in a bit more of closer range to be successful. I could see it being a close fight. Don't get me wrong. I just think OAM will be winning it. I think he's a really solidly well-rounded fighter, and I think you got to be elite somewhere to beat him, and I don't think Ray is elite somewhere. So I will say OAM UD.
I will never pick Stevie Ray because he has defeated Anthony Pettis twice. And I do agree. I completely agree, actually, that I think OAM is a very, very well-rounded mixed martial artist, and I see him besting Stevie Ray in just about all facets. So I'm going to take OAM by unanimous decision. Now we turn to a randomly inserted non-title fight in the women's featherweight division at the PFL between Julia Budd and Aspen Ladd, the recently displaced UFC women's featherweight, plagued by pretty much weight-cutting issues throughout her UFC tenure. Talented nonetheless. Omar, give us your thoughts on this women's featherweight bout that is high profile enough in the PFL to be inserted in the main card in the midst of all these $1 million title fights.
Admittedly, I'm very curious about this fight. I think this is a fantastic fight. Aspen Ladd, like you said, has kind of had some weight cutting issues for quite some time now. Hasn't made weight, and we took a fight at 145, still couldn't make weight. So it's not like we're at a point now where we're sure that she can make weight, because we're not still at this point. I think, once Friday comes around, we can finally see whether she's going to make weight or not. Hopefully that's not really an issue here, but that still remains to be seen. Skill for skill, Julia Budd might have this one in the bag. Aspen Ladd hasn't really shown that she's gotten better. In fact, there are a lot of arguments to be made that she's gotten worse. And Julia Budd, if nothing else, has been consistent with how she fights and who she is. So I just at this particular point in time, I can't really pick Aspen Ladd with the way that she's been fighting. So I'm going to go with Julia Budd, and I think she finishes her. I go Julia Budd, TKO, round 2.
Mark, give it to us.
So I think the reason this fight is on the main card in this high-profile spot is because they're kind of hoping that Aspen Ladd wins it, or even if Budd wins it, it could go either way. But Ladd is probably the bigger name that they can put her into a fight with Kayla Harrison down the line that they can build. Aspen Ladd is favored. She is minus 225. Julia Budd is plus 185. And I kind of agree. I think they actually found someone who I'm going to pick Aspen Ladd against. I have not picked Aspen Ladd in a while. It has become increasingly hard to trust her to do anything. I don't know if I could trust her to go run an errand at the store for me. But Julia Budd's last loss is kind of concerning to me. We've talked about it on here before, how for a long time at 145, Julia Budd beat anyone who was not Amanda Nunes, Ronda Rousey, or Cyborg. Those were her losses for a long time, those three women. Everyone else she turned back. In her PFL debut, she lost to Jenna Fabian and didn't look great, and she is 39 and got me kind of thinking like, has Julia Budd spent the last couple years fighting a couple random fights, and maybe she's gotten a little bit old, and maybe the time of using Julia Budd as a Kayla Harrison test potentially has passed, and I kind of can't shake that feeling. I could certainly see it be wrong. Like, I wouldn't touch this fight betting on it just because Aspen Ladd is who she is. But I thought Budd looked a little bit on the short end of the athletic end in her last fight, and Ladd is at least that. So I'm going to go with Aspen Ladd to win a decision.
I don't like the age disparity between these two ladies. Aspen Ladd still only 27. Julia Budd, 39 years old. She's got a lot of size. She carries around a lot of muscle. And all that size and mass paired with her age, taking on the younger, in theory, more athletic and more explosive Aspen Ladd, I think it's a recipe where we're going to see Julia Budd look bad. And Aspen Ladd, let's not forget, is very talented. So I'm going to make a safe-ish pick, and I'm going to take Aspen Ladd by unanimous decision. Okay, let's get back into the title talk here. In the heavyweight division, I hope I don't butcher this guy's name too much. Ante Delija taking on Matheus Scheffel for the PFL heavyweight strap and $1 million. Mark, let me toss it over to you first this time.
All right, so Ante Delija is minus 300. Matheus Scheffel is plus 220. I actually thought it'd be wider. The story, I've said it before on this show, but I'll recap it quickly for you guys. The story of Matheus Scheffel ending up in this $1 million fight is pretty wild. He fights, he was not even part of he kind of came in late. He was just getting one fight. He wasn't going to have enough points to qualify or anything. He fought Bruno Capoloza, who had already qualified. Some people thought maybe Bruno was going to take it easy. He kind of fought a tentative fight, and Scheffel won it. Then Capoloza had to pull out of the tournament because he got hurt. So they called Scheffel, and they said, hey, you just beat him. You want into the tournament. So he got in. Then his opponent, who he was a huge underdog against, was supposed to be Denis Goltsov, had to pull out. They called Juan Adams, former UFC fighter, who's not that great. He filled in. Scheffel beat him, and boom, he's in the finals fighting for $1 million. So quite a weird road to get here. Meanwhile, Ante Delija is smashing fools on the other side of things. So, and one of the fools was Matheus Scheffel. Ante Delija already beat him back in April by TKO. So Scheffel gets his shot at a rematch. I don't think it's going to go any different. I think that at some point Scheffel has to get exposed in this run. I think it's now. Ante Delija is prone to start quick. I'm going to say this happens quickly. Round one knockout for Delija. And he's also the bigger man, I meant to say. 4 inches taller, 3-inch reach. I think it's a factor. I think he bum rushes him. Round one knockout.
Omar, what are your thoughts?
I would actually have to agree. Like Mark said, this guy, they've already fought, and I think Delija already has his number. I do think that it will be pretty violent in the first round, but I don't think he'll be able to close the show in the first round. Come the second round, though, I think he'll be able to pick up where he left off. I go with TKO round 2.
All right, moving on. In the co-main event of the finale of PFL season 2022, for the featherweight title and $1 million, Brendan Loughnane taking on Bubba Jenkins. Omar, why don't you give us your take first?
Out of curiosity, is it Loughnane? It's not like Lachlan or some shit.
Loughnane.
Okay.
Loughnane.
I've heard Loughnane. I think it's Loughnane.
I have heard it both ways, but I feel like I hear Loughnane more often. Who knows?
Who knows?
All right. Well, I like me some Bubba Jenkins. I've been a Bubba Jenkins fan for a little bit now, partially because of the name, the other part of it because I enjoy the way he fights. I think for this one, these guys are both very, very well rounded. I'm going to go with Bubba Jenkins, though, by unanimous decision.
So, Loughnane riding a 3-fight win streak coming into this title fight. Bubba Jenkins, of course, needing no introduction, also riding a 3-fight win streak. Mark, give us your pick.
All right, so Loughnane is favored here. He's minus 180. Bubba is the plus 145 dog. I really didn't know which way that was going to go. I knew it would be in the hundreds, but I didn't even know who would be favored. So it is Loughnane. This is my favorite men's fight on this card for sure. I really love this fight. Could absolutely see it going either way. Loughnane is coming off a truly perfect fight. He fought his best possible fight against Chris Wade in the last one. Got a huge win to put himself here. I think he's going to have to do it again. I think he is going to have to fight as perfectly. Wade is a great wrestler. I know Loughnane managed to turn him back, but for some reason, despite Wade having actually beaten Jenkins in the PFL, I think Jenkins is going to find more success. He just feels so dialed into me right now. His kickboxing has improved drastically since we knew him as a Bellator fighter. I think that helps him to find some entries and find some takedowns. And as tough as Brendan Loughnane is, I mean, the guy has won 10 out of 11. Like, he is the real deal. He should have been in the UFC if you remember his whole thing with the Contender Series where he didn't get the contract when he should have. But I just don't think he can fight that perfect of a fight again defending the wrestling. His prior track record does not show him as someone who can defend the wrestling like that. And that fight was in his hometown. Crowd was crazy behind him. I think that may have been a factor. I'm going to bet that he can't do it 2 fights in a row. Plus, Jenkins is a bit faster, a bit more explosive than Chris Wade is. I think that helps him too. I'm going to say Bubba rides a multifaceted performance between the striking and the wrestling in a close fight, but to a decision victory.
Omar, give us your thoughts.
He went
I
first.
did.
Oh, my bad.
Bubba. Team Bubba.
Oh, that's right. You were Team Bubba. I'm going to be the contrarian here. I think Loughnane is super talented guy. He only wins on winning streaks. If you look at his record, his losses are spread apart. He'll have a random loss and then he'll go on another 4, 5, 6 fight win streak. Super talented guy. I'm going to take him by knockout. I'm going to say round number 3 over Bubba Jenkins.
Nice.
Okay, boys. Main event time. We have for the women's. I believe it is the lightweight championship for the PFL between Kayla Harrison and Larissa Pacheco. So we have Harrison, the 32-year-old. At this point, PFL living legend, has won more PFL straps and millions than anybody else, I suppose. The undefeated Olympian in MMA now. She's 15-0. The 32-year-old out of Middletown, Ohio. Most recently coming off of a victory over Martina Jindrova back in August of this year. Larissa Pacheco. This will be the 3rd time's a charm for Pacheco, who has tried twice against Kayla Harrison and been unsuccessful both times, losing both fights by unanimous decision. Pacheco, the 28-year-old out of Para, Brazil, 18-4 as a professional with 9 knockouts and 8 submissions. Only one of her victories has come by way of decision, and she will be riding a 5-fight win streak coming into this Friday night. Omar, let me throw it over to you first, buddy. Give us your thoughts and your pick. Harrison versus Pacheco.
Kind of a crazy fight because I think any other day of the week I'd probably be picking Pacheco to win a fight. But Kayla Harrison is a beast. Her technique puts her on a completely different level. She's already taken out Pacheco twice, I think, at this point, or once, twice,
yeah.
Twice. And I don't know what I'm supposed to expect for this fight to be different. Kayla Harrison, again, is somebody who uses her judo and her wrestling to be on a different level, and I don't think Pacheco is on there. If this was a straight striking match, we'd have a different conversation. But the fact is that as soon as Pacheco looks like she might be getting comfortable, her ass is going to get spun into tomorrow. She's going to end up on the floor. Kayla's going to end up with an arm or a neck, and it's going to be over. I credit Pacheco for being able to survive against Kayla Harrison. I think both times, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, she's never been finished by Kayla Harrison. And to
Never
be
won
fair,
a round either, though.
yeah, but in a world where Kayla Harrison is taking limbs left and right for the most part,
Yeah.
it's you know, I guess it's like saying you were the best worst one of the class, so it's not really like the greatest compliment in the world, but you know, you didn't get sunned like I guess everybody else did. But again, I think Kayla Harrison has Pacheco's number. I don't think that anything different has changed or will change to make this result any different than what it was. So I'm going to go with Kayla Harrison by unanimous decision, and I expect there to probably be at least one 10-8 round involved.
Mark, give it to us, your pick and your take.
Okay, so Kayla's a big favorite. She's minus 675. Larissa Pacheco is plus 475. I was curious how big it would be with the run Pacheco's been on, but still pretty damn wide.
Yeah.
To start, I just want to point out how good Larissa Pacheco is. Her losses in her career are to Jessica Andrade, Germaine de Randamie, and Kayla twice. All world champions. In her 18 other fights, she has won them all and finished 17 of them. Like, the girl's an animal. And she looks like she's in the best form of her life. She looks legitimately scary. She's murdering people in round one again and again. She has a ton of cage time with Kayla Harrison now to try to formulate a game plan that works. I do not think it's impossible. I truly don't. If it happens, it will happen in round one. I think if we get out of round one, it gets a lot harder. But with all that being said, you cannot actually pick her as much as I'm very interested to see those first 5 minutes at least. It's just, she has looked that frightening that I'm like, fuck, like, maybe? Like, I don't know, but you can't pick her. Odds-wise, you could sprinkle her for sure, whatever the odds on a knockout are. But in terms of a straight-up pick, you got to go with Kayla. Kayla did seem a little bored in her first fight back in the PFL in 2022 after failing to materialize a Nunez fight or a Cyborg fight. But she's turned it up in her last two. She finished both, one by TKO, one by arm triangle. I got to think she's ready for this. She's been watching all the performances by Pacheco. She knows this girl's coming. She knows that she is still right there to potentially land a huge fight at any moment. You know, if she wins this million, who knows what kind of negotiations happen. Maybe she is suddenly fighting Cyborg somehow in some agreement between the companies. So there's a lot on the line. She can't afford to slip up here. And as much tape as Larissa has and as much time against Kayla as she has, I just don't think you can close a gap that big in the wrestling and the judo. So I think Kayla will do what she does. If I got to bet, that's what I got to say. I think she'll do what she does. I think she gets the UD again. Maybe this time Larissa wins a round. I really am impressed by her, but how can you not pick Kayla Harrison? So Kayla Harrison completes the three-peat and takes another million home.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think that it's impossible to pick against the 15-0 fighter to begin with, as impressive as Pacheco is and as much firepower as she brings into a fight, especially in the early moments of the fight. Yeah, we've read this play before, and we know how it ends, and I think it's going to be most of the same. And I think that not only has Pacheco had two chances to figure out Harrison has also had two chances to clearly figure out Pacheco. So she also will be game planning and knowing how to exact her game plan. I think she's going to sail to an uneventful, unanimous decision victory, staying away from the power and the skills of Pacheco. It's going to be very grapple heavy once again for Harrison. So I'm going to say Harrison by unanimous decision and still and once again and all the things.